Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Ineke Clark from Ambition Social. Ineke runs a social media and brand strategy company in South Australia and works all around the country and has a client internationally as well. So in this episode, we'll talk a lot about what she does for construction companies with their social media side of things and advertising and brand strategy, as I said. And one of the things I loved about what she did when she started off, so she studied for 4 years in one thing and then worked in another industry because she loved what she was doing. So even though you spend time studying one thing, thinking you want to do it, you're going to be more successful if you follow your passion. So I think it was a great lesson to learn early on. And she was doing that with the companies that she worked for early, and then the way she started her business was doing the same thing, was helping out people that she knew, and then realised that she could actually charge for it. And so it's a great way to be successful. There's plenty of advice in this chat, such as when she started her own business, she was taking on everything like a lot of landscapers do as well. So taking on if your client asks, "Can you do this?" Say, "Yep," even though it's not something you'd usually do. So you can get into a bit of strife doing that way, and you can sort of lose focus on where you're wanting to head. So it's good to either niche down, or if that's what you want to do, you can keep doing it. But it's good to be aware of what you want to do and stick with what you do. And there's also plenty of questions I'd ask her about, the types of posts that companies should be doing and when to post and all that sort of thing, all the ins and outs of social media. So there's heaps of good advice, and I loved having this chat as well. So it's clear that Ineke loves what she does and really easy to talk to. So it's good when you can find someone who's passionate about what they do. So hopefully there's plenty of advice and you enjoy this chat with Ineke Clark. Ineke, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
I started in the industry almost by accident. So when I left school, I was actually majoring in Japanese at university. And I managed to get a part-time job as an office manager, or like an office assistant, at a company called Maison, which sells pavers and pots and things to both retail and trade in South Australia. And I was their office assistant for a couple of weeks, and then I was they had a weekend sale. And my boss at the time said, you're going to be a salesperson this weekend. And I was absolutely terrified because I had no idea how to sell pavers or how to work out square meterage, etc. But it was that throwing me in the deep end that led to my career ending up in the landscaping industry and diverting away. So I went through the whole university degree, and I graduated with a university medal, but then diverted away back to the construction industry, and in particular landscaping. So I think, like a lot of us in the industry, it was almost by accident, but once I was in the industry, I couldn't get away. I just absolutely loved it, and particularly the people within it.
Yeah.
I did actually try and leave a couple of times, but then ended up coming back.
Yeah, I've done that too. Half the work of it. So what was the plan when you were studying Japanese? What were you looking to do after that?
I was looking to, so I've always been very good at languages, and that's partly what's led to me doing what I do today. But I was basically following my passion with the view to eventually work in tourism with Japanese. So I got a scholarship. I studied in Japan for a year. And at the time I was fluent and could write and speak Japanese fluently. And it was quite a hard decision for me to recognise that although I'd done all that study, that my passion was where my part-time job was, as opposed to what I'd studied.
All right. Well, that's a good thing to know. At least you found what your passion was anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So were you working at Maison for a while?
Yeah, I worked at Maison, it must have been for about 4 years in a part-time capacity. And from there, that's where I did try and leave. So I thought, okay, now I'm going to work with my Japanese. And I worked for a Japanese company for a very brief amount of time, and then worked out very quickly that I missed the industry that I'd left, and then found my way back to the landscaping industry.
Was that with Anston?
No, that was actually, I worked for a landscaping company called Neighbour Labour, who are based in Adelaide. They're no longer, but I worked for them as their business manager for a while. And then from there, I got a job with Urbanstone, and then the job with Anston. So that's what led me to Melbourne.
All right. So, and what were you doing at Anston?
I was their national marketing and sales manager. And I'm so grateful to Anston because not only did they bring me to Melbourne, which is a place that I absolutely love, but they gave me the opportunity to work with so many amazing people in the industry. And really, it's those connections in Melbourne that then led me to be able to start Ambition back here, but still have really strong ties with Melbourne. So, yeah, I absolutely love my time at Anston and still really feel fondly about or think fondly of my time there and the people that I work with there.
And how long were you there for?
I was there for 2 years and then moved back to Adelaide after that.
Oh, right. Yeah, because you did have because I knew about you before I haven't spoken to you much, but you've got a good reputation. Like there's people like Steve Taylor, Phil Withers, Brett Reed all talk ravingly about you. So you're one of those people that I'd hear about at events about doing great things. So, and yeah, I didn't know you'd only been there 2 years.
I know, and it did feel like a lot longer than that. And all of those connections have lasted well beyond that time because I was in Melbourne 2013, 2014. And yeah, those connections are still, 2013 to 2015, I moved back. Yeah, sorry, I'm just working out my years, moved back in 2016 back to Adelaide. And those people that you mentioned, they're still friends and a couple of them are still clients today.
Yeah. And what did you move back to Adelaide for?
I actually moved back for a relationship. So I moved to Melbourne and then a year into being in Melbourne, started a long distance relationship with someone back in Adelaide, then moved back for the relationship, which has since ended. And that's where I was but I've actually got a lot to thank that situation for because I think in leaving Melbourne and leaving Anston, I loved my job so much that I couldn't replicate it in Adelaide. So that's what eventually led to me starting my own company because I just was a bit lost for a while and didn't know what I wanted to do. And Anston and a few other people that I knew in the industry reached out wanting help. And that's what eventually led to me starting my own business. So it's funny how things happen. Yeah, I believe that things happen for a reason.
Yeah, 100%. So have you studied any marketing or anything in the past?
So my minor at university was marketing. So I was doing a communications degree with my major in Japanese, and this is where the whole tourism thing's tied into it. I thought I'll become fluent in Japanese and I'll be able to work in the tourism industry with a marketing angle. So I studied marketing throughout university, but it was actually the jobs that I did within the industry. They were always marketing focused or sales and marketing. And so that's how I earned my stripes, basically.
Yeah. Learning on the job is a pretty good way to go about it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I heard on the Landscape Victoria podcast, which you were on in the early days, that you built Anston's social media following from. Did you? I don't know if you started it, but then when you left, it was at 10,000 or something followers.
Correct. Yeah, I started it from scratch, and that was just when Instagram was quite new on the scene, and it was the glory days of Instagram when everything that you posted was seen by everyone in your audience because it was chronological algorithm. And I just started posting, and Anston hadn't had a social media presence before, and all of that space was quite new. And I built it up to just below 10,000 followers before I left, and was very, very proud of that. And that really helped because Anston was well known in the industry, but I think it had a very particular image to its brand that they wanted to change. And we were able to do that through social media and then also get them obviously an interstate audience as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty cool having that impact.
Yeah.
Was that in the early days? Did you have to do posts from a computer? You couldn't do them from the phone?
No, you always did them from the phone. So it was always designed as a photo sharing app. Gosh, I wish it was still what it was back in those days, that just the more you posted, the more you got seen.
Yeah.
So much has changed since then.
I know. I like some of the things. Like whenever there's a change to algorithms, there's always some good and bad things. But I like that you see more of what you like because it makes sense. But it'd be good if you could, maybe select. I suppose you can select some people if you want to turn notifications on. You can see every post that they do. But it'd be good to have like a list of people you want to see everything from, as well as your normal stuff.
Yeah, and you're right. You can do that manually. So you can manually choose your favorites to make sure that you see every single post from them. But it's just a little bit trickier for businesses now. And it's definitely, you need to be quite strategic about the way you approach it. And you obviously put a lot of time and effort into your marketing and your social media presence, and it makes a huge difference if you're keeping up with the trends and the way that the algorithm's moving.
Mm-hmm. So how did you come about to start the business that you've got now?
Ambition. Yeah. It happened very naturally, and Phil Withers will actually attest to this. I know that when I was working at Anston, he and I used to have chats quite often about social media and marketing and branding, and he and several others in the industry would contact me, and it was just like something I was doing on the side, basically, just because it was such a passion of mine, and I'd had experience in it through different companies that I'd worked for. And that never really stopped. So people have always reached out and asked my advice, particularly in the social media space. And it's funny because I'm sure we'll get to talk about this more, but I never intended to start a social media agency. That was not the plan, but I've got a natural affinity for it. And it was the number one thing that I got asked about. And I think that building that presence on Anston's Instagram was a big part of that. So people just always used to ask my advice, and it wasn't until I'd moved back to Adelaide and had left my job at Anston and was feeling quite lost that I actually started to think perhaps it's something where I could actually charge people for my advice, because I knew that I was able to help them, but I'd never considered the idea of actually starting my own brand and consulting to people, essentially. And Anston was one of the very first takers for that, along with the Master Landscapers of SA. So that was like the really early days of me just consulting. So that wasn't ambition at that stage. That was just me as a freelance consultant. And when I started Ambition, I started it because I wanted to grow a team. Because when I was just a one-person band, so when I was consulting just myself, I got to capacity within a few months. And then people kept on asking me if I could help them, and I couldn't because I was maxed out. And the Master Landscapers obviously grew into a huge role. And so when it came to starting Ambition, from day one, I had an employee, which was obviously a pretty gutsy move at the time, but I knew that I wanted to build a team and build an agency as opposed to it just all being me being the contact person.
Yeah, I love that it's just, gradually built that naturally like that, doing something that you enjoy doing and helping out people that you know, and then it just builds from that. That's starting a business either that way or when you're solving one of your own needs and other people benefit from are the most successful ways to do it, because you've got actual passion behind what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
And you mentioned the Master Landscapers SA. So were you the CEO there? Is that the role?
I was. Yeah.
How did that come about?
That's a funny story, actually, because again, I mentioned I was back in Adelaide. I was at a bit of a loose end, and I was panicking a bit because I thought I've left this job that I love, and I don't know if that was the right decision, and I miss Melbourne, and I can't find what I want back in Adelaide in a career sense. And in a moment of sort of desperation, I put a post on Facebook and said, I'm back in Adelaide. I'm looking for work. If anyone, I'm open to part-time, full-time, anything. Please reach out if you're interested and we'll have a chat. And one of the people who reached out was Pete Adley from Yardstick Landscape Services. And Pete at the time was on the board, and he's the current president of the Master Landscapers. And he reached out and said, I think we could really do with some help with sponsorship. So we're finding it hard to find sponsors. Would you help us with that? And at the time I said, no, I'm not really interested in that. That's not what I'm looking for. And I'm not looking to become a salesperson essentially for an association that I have no connection with. And then they came back to me and said, well, would you be our CEO? And I went, oh, okay, well, this is totally different. This is something that I'd be really interested in. And I knew that was a role that had huge potential. But at the time, as I mentioned, I was consulting to a few other businesses as well. So I started out basically as a part-time CEO, and then very quickly that role grew into 5 days a week, and I had a team of people. So by the time I left, I had a team in the office, and we'd grown the association into, when I started, I think it was very much being treated as a bit of a part-time thing by the people who were actually working there, and it became this full-time beast that I was really proud of. And we increased sponsorship and membership out of sight. I think sponsorship increased by 400% and membership by 200%. So yeah, it's again something that I look back on really fondly, and also that I had the opportunity to do that, to step into that role at a time when I feel like SA really needed that sort of support and industry representation.
Yeah, I loved it because I remember at the time looking at what even just what the Instagram page was doing for the Master Landscapers of SA. I was envious of how much they were promoting the industry and promoting the members, and yeah, I reckon it was an awesome. And so it makes sense that it was growing, because that's what people know, that the industry associations exist, but it helps seeing them and seeing what they do. So yeah, being active on socials is an awesome idea for the associations. There's a couple that do it really well still.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was all social media was driving. We were sending out emails, etc., but we were capturing new members and new sponsors through social media.
Mm. So how long were you there for?
2.5 years.
And did your business get too busy that you had to step away? Is that why you left there?
No, because I'd essentially, by the time I left Master Landscapers, I was full-time CEO, and I'd actually left all my other clients in order to focus on Master Landscapers. But towards the end of that time, because it got pretty intense, obviously, the last awards night we sold out, filled the room, and my role was growing larger than what I could cope with. And I'd reached a point where I just wanted to, again, do something different, because I had an idea of growing this agency. And in order to do that, I needed to hand over the reins at Master Landscapers. And then I took a couple of months off and started Ambition.
Oh. And how many staff have you got now?
I've got 3 wonderful account managers, and some who are probably listening outside my office.
And so you said you started with one straight away. How soon after did you have to build up the other 2 to start on?
So Sarah started with me 2 days per week. She's on maternity leave at the moment, but so she's been with me since day one. And it would have been about, I'm just trying to remember the timing. Sarah started in July 2019, and then Riley came on board in March 2020, which, as you can imagine, was a pretty scary time. I just brought Riley on full time just when the pandemic was hitting, and we had 12 clients at the time, and 6 of them pulled out or cut back. And I was absolutely panicking, thinking, how are we going to get through this? But of course, what happened after that was that then we had this rush of inquiries, and we took on more clients than we'd lost in a really short space of time. But yeah, so poor Riley came on board. I think she'd been in the office for 10 days. And then we all just went into lockdown, and she was working from home.
What?
Yeah, and then Riley's still with me today, and I've also got Isabel and Laura as well.
Cool. So, and what sort of service do you provide for the clients? Is it basically targeted to whatever their goals are?
It is, and that's the reason why I called the company Ambition, because, and I'll be honest, I started the company to be a full service marketing agency. So from day one, and there's some clients quite a few of our clients who've been with us from day one, we've done a whole lot more than just social media for them. We've built their websites, rebranded, implemented different systems within their business, even hired staff for them in the early days as well. So I was really trying to be the solution to lots of problems for business owners, because that's what I always was when I was working for different companies. I was multi-skilled, and I was able to help across a lot of different areas in order to help the company to move forward. And then I very quickly realised, you can probably hear I've been on a few different journeys within my career, where you start, and I know it's the same for every business owner, you start thinking this is a great idea, and then you get down the path and think, actually, this is too much. And it literally became everything to our clients, and it was almost a reincarnation of when I was working as a freelancer, when as their business would then grow as a result of what we'd done for them, then our role would grow, and it would become very hard to manage. We were essentially their external marketing department. And I was spending all my time juggling all these different parts of the business within a really small team. And then, we kept on having more and more inquiries coming in that were centered around social media. And I recognized that I needed to, in order for my sanity, but also for the business to become more sustainable moving forward, that we needed to pick one area and specialize in it, as opposed to trying to be a branding agency, a website company, social media agency, even HR in some cases, and assistance with project management and all sorts of different things. I recognized, and this was mid-2021, that I needed to focus on one area and become really good at delivering that one service, as opposed to trying to do everything. And so we focused in on social media, and a lot of those clients that we'd rebranded and built their websites, etc., we still do their social media management today. So if you were a new client and you came to me today and said, what do you guys do? We offer social media management and brand strategy. So we catch up once a quarter and we discuss your goals for your business. And that can be a whole lot broader than social media. But obviously, as I described with Anston and with the master landscapers, what you project on social media can really influence the direction that your business heads in and the goals that you have for that business. So it's really important to us and to me in particular that we're not just getting your photo database and sharing content on social media, that we actually have a really intimate understanding of what you're wanting to do with your business. And then we help you get there through the really powerful tools of social media, which we know, I know about the landscaping podcast because of social media. And I know about a lot of people in the industry because of what I see that they do on social media. So recognizing that was a really core thing that we could deliver to a really high standard, but then we still weren't losing that brand strategy side of things, because that's I think it's critically important, and that's what I'm most passionate about as well. So we can go into more detail about what that service actually looks like, but in a nutshell, that's what we offer, is social media management and brand strategy.
Yeah, and that's a great point for like landscapers as well, in terms of, because landscapers do a bit of everything. And some people are okay doing that, and they've got a nice amount of work coming in, they can keep it under control. But other people like to niche down into a particular aspect of landscaping, or because I hate doing excavation, so I like to get rid of that as often as I can. So that's something I'm starting to subcontract out, so that we can focus on the things we're more skilled at and enjoy more as well. So yeah, it's just exactly the same as what you've done, basically.
Yeah, it is. That's actually a really good analogy. It's basically like I started a landscaping company and said, well, we can do design, residential, commercial, and garden maintenance, and anything that you want, we can do, which is true. But I really quickly worked out that I was spending 80% of my time on the parts of the business that weren't very profitable. And then the time that I wanted to spend was on the social media side that was thriving, and that's where all the inquiries were coming from. And that's something I knew that we could really systemize and become really, really good at delivering. So yeah, that's exactly right. And I often look with amazement at, because I know you had Tim Davies as a guest, I've got so much respect for people who manage to build up a business in the landscaping industry that's multifaceted, because they're all such specialized skill sets.
Yeah, it blows me away how you can have that many staff. It's insane. 120, 130 staff full time, and he seems pretty level headed and happy as well. So he must be doing well.
Yeah, and that's thanks to you for bringing him on your podcast, because I think, like you, I'd always watched that brand and thought, they're obviously good at what they do, but hearing the backstory and the size of the team is just, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's exactly why I love doing this as well. Because because when you go into messages, I could see that I followed them since 2017, and just thought, oh yeah, they're pretty nice. And a couple of designers I've spoken to, I think Mon Palmer and Bonnie Stacey, I think they both worked for him at some stage. So wow. Maybe he's got he's got a fair old crew. And then turns out he's got a lot. He's got, I don't know, 20 designers or something crazy. But yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So do you have a list? So you changed when you worked out that niching down into the social side, you changed from Ambition Consultants to Ambition Social. So have you got a list of like photographers and that sort of thing that you recommend for people to use, and other recommendations, because you don't do everything?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So basically, we're still going to get all of those questions, and content creation, so photography and videography, we've got a great suite of professionals in different cities and now different countries as well, who we can recommend to clients depending on what they're looking to achieve. And that works really well. So we've got some really great partnerships with different content creators who are great at what they do, and we give them the brief because so they work directly with the client, but we'll make sure that they understand what we're wanting to achieve from the shoot, and especially where reels are concerned as well, because obviously, as you know, that's becoming the way that Instagram presents content has changed a lot just in the last year. So we provide them with a brief. And the same goes if a client needs help with their website, etc. Because we no longer have an in-house developer, then we've got some great people that we can recommend to solve that problem, so that we can still provide that sort of support just by recommending the right people.
Yeah. And that, because you don't want to just say, nah, do you do this? If your client says, do you do this? You say, nah, can't help you, sorry. But you want to be able to have that, even though you're not doing it yourself. You're probably not making any money off it. You want to have someone that you recommend, because it sort of helps you get some trust from the clients as well.
Yeah, and because we're providing that brand strategy support, we've become part of the team, and we're seen as the marketing department for a lot of our clients. And so they are going to have a lot of questions that are a lot broader than social media, printing business cards, site signage, vehicle signage, etc. And just through my years of experience, I've worked out some really great contacts in each space, and I can just point them in the right direction.
Yep. And speaking of reels, is it every Friday that you put out, your account puts out a reel? I love seeing them because it looks like you have a massive amount of fun doing it, and I can imagine what it'd be like behind the camera. And there'd be a couple of laughs going on, I'd assume. But yeah. What's the strategy behind that?
And just you wait, we've got a bloopers reel coming up towards the end of the year. So there's a lot of bloopers, a lot of fun. Fridays are fantastic in here for that reason. But there was a very deliberate strategy behind it. I've got a great team, and they're really fun, talented, creative people. And up until recently, I was managing our social media. And I think I was presenting a really polished, professional image. But it really helps to be able to see behind the scenes and to see the fun that we have in here and the personalities that we have in here. That combined with the fact that we knew that Instagram was pivoting towards reels, and that we needed to get really good at reels really fast. And so it was a way for us to basically hone our skills whilst having a lot of fun, because it's so much fun, but also then reaching more people, because reels reach a lot more people than in any other form of post. And it's also got a recruitment angle. So it's funny because when we first started posting them, everyone kept on saying, oh, you guys you mustn't do any work. How do you have the time to create all these videos? And we've doubled our audience through our presence on Reels, and it's had such a powerful response. And I listened to all those comments coming in, and I thought, no, this is the most powerful marketing strategy we've ever had. And we're doing it ourselves. So we're doing it in-house. We're having a lot of fun, and we're reaching a lot more people by having a lot of fun. So it's not the time spent, it's the fun that we have and the results that we get from it.
Yeah, I laugh when people say, if they see a reel that I've done or that I'm doing the podcast, I say, when do you do any work? This is work. It's all part of it. You can't just lay pavers, just be laying pavers all the time and then think, oh, why aren't I getting any work? Why aren't I getting the type of jobs I want? You guys got to go out and do something different to bring it in.
That's actually a really valid point too, because I think that a lot of people think that marketing, even if you outsource it to another company or you get a photographer in, that marketing kind of just takes care of itself, but it's a lot of time and effort. And those companies that get amazing results in that space have dedicated time or money or both to getting results. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, well, Coca-Cola still advertise, so if they are, it's probably a good thing to do, depending on what your goals are, obviously.
Yeah, that's a very, very good analogy, because there's a bit of a thing. I don't know if it's specific to our industry. It seems to be specific to this industry based on some of the clients that we have in other industries. People get worried about posting too often, and what will people think if I post too often? But those bigger brands, they're posting multiple times a day, every few hours, and no one's thinking, oh gosh, Coca-Cola's posting too much. Or look, I've seen that photo before, or I've seen that ad before. It's brand awareness.
Mm. So with your clients, is it a combination of you doing the posts as opposed to what they want to do, or how does it work when you take on a new client?
Yeah, it's truly collaborative, and those clients of ours what you said at the very beginning is correct, in that we adjust our approach to suit the individual client, because everyone works differently and everyone has different resources available. But so it's very much a collaboration between, because obviously to post or to showcase a company properly, we need content. So that's one thing, and that's where we ask for support from our client in terms of, we'll recommend the photographer, we'll give the brief, but you've got to organise the shoot and basically make that side of things happen. But then when we get the content, it's up to us to make sure that we understand exactly what's happening in each project, what the goals of the business are, and what sort of clients they're wanting to chase, and to present the content and the brand in the right way. So from the client's perspective, we need them to be really clear on what their goals are and what sort of clients they want to attract, and then to assist us with getting content. And then once all of those things are ticked off, then they can rely on us to present the content in the right way and to navigate all the various algorithm issues of Instagram, etc., to make sure that they reach the right people and that their brand's presented really authentically. That's something that I'm, again, very passionate about, is if we're speaking on a company's behalf, we want to make sure that they're really proud of everything that we're presenting. And a lot of time and thought goes into that. And for most of our girls, they're in contact with the clients every day, if not every second day. And it's incredibly collaborative.
So do you, with some of them, will you take over replying to comments and that sort of thing?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So again, that was an interesting experiment, because in the early days, we had clients who didn't want what we call community management. So they said, oh, we'll handle that side of our things ourselves, or we don't really care about that side of things, or we want to save a bit of money, so just quote us on just posting. And that's not the way social media works, as I'm sure you're aware. If you're just posting and you're not actually spending time on there interacting, commenting on photos, replying to messages, replying to comments, etc., your account's going to stagnate, because all the engagement is not being... So because engagement is, again, a two-way street. It's not just about you putting out a photo and getting some likes or getting some comments. It's about you broadening your network on there by being really active. So we do that on our clients' behalf, because most of our clients are business owners and they're incredibly busy and they might not have time to spend on their account every day.
Yep. And you don't need to have massive conversations with people after they comment either. Like something simple as thanks is a lot better than just leaving it blank. Because when I go into comments of some people who've done an amazing, there's an amazing photo, and there might be a fancy designer, and then there's 20 comments, and not one of them has been liked or replied. It's such a small thing, and really, it doesn't mean much of the grand scheme of things, but it does help build your brand and awareness.
There's so much psychology involved, and that's a really interesting thing, because I know that if I've commented, if I, as Ambition, have commented on a photo and I haven't had any sort of response, then I'm not likely to comment on that person's photo again, because I think, oh, they're not really interested in what I have to say anyway. Or if someone doesn't read my message or doesn't react to my message or whatever, then you're put off from engaging with that account again. And that's why the big accounts that we see in our industry, like Harrison's Landscaping, the Balcony Garden, etc., Outdoor Designer Store, they're always really active on there. So they're not just posting and thinking, I've got such a big audience, I'm just going to get lots of likes for every post. They're commenting on other people's photos and actively being a part of the community, which takes quite a bit of time and effort, but it's really important.
And you need to be genuine as well. Like you can't, there's one account that springs to mind recently, was commenting on everyone's posts a lot, and you can just tell that there's commenting for the sake of commenting, and it's not as genuine.
Exactly.
So it's a balance you need to get.
Yeah, that's really true, and you're right. So you can't just, for example, have someone sitting there just putting flame emojis on every photo. Because
I've blocked a paving supplier for that exact reason, because every time I would do a story, I'd get 3 flame emojis, and I'd have to go into the message and read it so it was unread. It's just annoying.
There's a saying that's almost worse. So there's a saying, don't post and ghost. And the same goes, don't post and spam other people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not one of the paving suppliers you work for, so don't worry.
Oh, good.
So you still got people who were your clients at the start who you're still looking after now? Is that what you said before?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So LED Outdoor and Architectural. I've known Troy, who owns LED Outdoor, for a very frighteningly long amount of time, because his uncle actually owns Maison.
All right.
And he's been a client of mine since day one, and really grateful for that relationship. It's wonderful to have clients that have just stayed with you through different incarnations of the business. And I've also been working for Elite Pools and Landscapes for a long time as well. And those sort of relationships, we're part of the team and part of the family. And yeah, that means a lot. Unfortunately, not working for Anston anymore, because after I started working for Master Landscapers, they then got a marketing coordinator on board. And I miss working with them. But there's quite a few who've been with me since day one. And Brent Reed from Candio Design and the London College of Garden Design, Melbourne, we've been working together for many, many years as well. It's always fun catching up with Brent, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Great character.
He is a lot of fun to hang around.
Yeah.
So are you looking at Anston's social media page now and thinking, I'm not sure I would have done that?
No, I don't think so. No, I think every time, because when you have ownership of a brand because we obviously take what we do very seriously, and when you have ownership of a brand and you have a particular way of doing things, when you hand it over, it's almost like handing over a child. And I remember that feeling of handing over Anston's Instagram and thinking, oh my gosh, this is my baby that I grew from nothing, and now I'm handing it back. But I think that they've done a great job since I've left. And in fairness to them as well, the algorithm changed shortly after I left, and it changed away from the chronological feed to closer, not what it is today, because it's changed several times since then, but it's a lot harder now to grow followers than it was back then.
Mm-hmm. So have you got anyone at Instagram or Facebook, like a marketing manager or something, who you would talk to when algorithms change, or you just have to work it out yourself?
I wish. That would be amazing. No, unfortunately, it's really hard. So you can actually make connections with like advertising support people at Meta. Facebook's rebranded as Meta, and Meta owns Instagram. But it's really hard to get support from anyone unless they reach out and offer you a time to talk about your ads. So if you're not paying, so if you're regularly boosting posts, for example, then you can definitely get some support in the ads area, but it's not particularly reliable support. And I've noticed that they always get the time zone wrong too. It's almost like they think the whole of Australia is just on Sydney time.
Yep.
Your Melbourne time. And so that's always a little bit confusing. But yeah, so if you're paying, you can reach someone at Meta, but it's not like you have a dedicated account person. It changes every time. So every time you reach out to someone, it would be a different contact.
Yep. Yeah, that makes it hard. So what sort of advice would you have for landscapers? Because you would see a lot of good landscaping Instagram pages and bad ones as well. So what's the sort of thing you people see making mistakes a lot?
Yeah, so one really important thing is that you need to invest in content. Again, I think people have this idea that, they can take a couple of photo shoots a year and share some of those and post once a week or once every 2 weeks and sort of slowly grow the audience that way. But if you're really serious about having success on social media, then those accounts that you see and admire, they've invested in a lot of content, professional content. And consistency is really important as well. So you can't jump in and think, I'm really inspired this week because I've got a new project and I'm going to post every day, and then disappear for a month and then come back and post a couple more times and sort of dabble in stories and then maybe share one reel every 6 months or so. Consistency is really important. So if you stop being consistent, then your engagement drops, and it can be a battle to get it back up again. So professional content and consistency, that would be my top 2 tips, as well as more recently, you do need to start looking at video content. So it's something that not a lot of people want to hear because it's harder than just posting a photo. But that's why maybe you need to start looking at getting some support in that area, because more and more social media is going to move towards video. Video doesn't have to be hard. You can take shots on your phone and just take a little pan of a garden that's in progress or finished and post it as a reel, and you will get a lot more reach than you would if you posted that as a post or a story. So you need to think about videos. So professional content, consistency, and videos would be my top 3 tips at the moment.
Yep. So is there any, what's the word, like sort of balance about the amount of time to post a week?
Yes, there is. Yeah. And it's funny because we've been able to experiment with that over the years. And I think if you're posting reels, you can get away with posting a little bit less because you get a lot more bang for your buck with reels. But if you're not sharing reels or not sharing video posts, then ideally you want to be posting a minimum of about 3 times a week. That's the ideal scenario. So 3 times and up is great. If you're really struggling for time, then just start with 2 times a week. I think if you want to make an impact, then 2 times a week, bare minimum. If you're wanting to, if you're wanting to have a presence on social media, 2 times a week is a minimum. But if you're wanting to actually grow your account, then you've got to commit to 3 posts per week or up to really get results.
And what about the ratio of stories compared to posts and reels and that sort of thing?
You took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say it's really important also to be active on stories. And even if you set yourself a goal of, say, 1 story per week, and here's a really good tip, you might want to actually put it in your calendar, because if you mentally commit to 1 story per week and you're constantly thinking, I've got to work out what to share to my story, whatever that might be, whether it's a shot from site or a professional photo that you've had taken, you're likely to forget, even if it's just 1 story per week. So if you put it in a calendar, just like going to a consult or something, at least it's there and you commit to doing it on that day. That's what we do. So we've got goals that we set for our clients week in, week out, and we're not always going to remember every little detail unless we actually put it in our calendar as an event. So I'd be looking at, and so I'm giving really realistic goals here, knowing that a lot of your audience are business owners, and the idea of having anything to do on social media is a lot on an already very full plate. But if you're committing to, so you go, okay, so I'm going to do 2 posts per week and 1 story per week, that's a great starting point, and then you can build up from there.
Yeah. And I find with people who do social media, you either, if you don't enjoy doing it, but you still want to do it, that's when you would get someone like you to come in and do it, because like I've seen plenty of times where you'll see a page start posting a few times a week for a little while, and then they just stop stone cold because they obviously don't enjoy doing it. Like, I love doing it, so that's why I keep doing it, and I don't care about how successful they are. That's why I have some horrible posts, but I just enjoy the process of doing it. Yeah. So if you actually want to do well with social media, like someone might know that it's a good place to go, but they don't want to do it themselves, that's when you get you in.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because it is, even if you set yourself that goal, after a time it gets laborious, especially if it's not your specialty. If you're not a natural writer or not a natural creative, and you're not wanting to think about which of these photos have I used of this project before and which ones haven't I, that's when you start, because everyone knows these days how important it is to have a presence on social media. And if you don't love it like you do, if you love it, that's great and you'll make time for it. But if you don't love it and you're struggling to make time for it, then that's where you look at getting some help.
Yeah. And is there a particular time of day that is better than others to do posts?
This is, again, a great question. And this is a massive myth. If you share a post at 6 a.m., it does not mean that your audience will see it at 6 a.m. So you can share a post at 6 a.m. because a lot of people say, oh, you should be sharing your posts at 6 a.m. for landscaping because that's when people are most active online. But it's not the way that it works anymore. It still works that way to a degree to stories, but even stories are controlled by the algorithm now. So you're more likely to see stories of the people that you interact with the most. But the algorithm determines when that post gets shown to which person in your audience. So the best way to try and, we invest in pretty powerful social media scheduling software, and that has what's called viral posting times in it. So it's worked out what time to share a post that will then show it to the right people at the right time based on the algorithm. But if you don't have technology like that, then you can actually go into your insights in your own Instagram account and you can see at what time your audience is most active. But as I mentioned before, even then, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to see it at that time of day. So I think it's a case of just post it when you've got the time if you don't have scheduling software, and you'll be able to go in and look at the analytics of the post afterwards and see how many people it reached. And then if you find that posting consistently on a certain day, you're getting really good results, then you're more likely to post on that day.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to know how well the time of day works because the popularity of it depends massively on the quality of the content. So like you could post two things at exactly the same time of day on the same day of the week, and one could go nuts. The other one could get nothing because one, no one cares about it, and the other one, everyone loves it. So
exactly. We have some funny conversations in the Ambition office as well, because sometimes, Fridays will be a great day for a few months and everyone's getting great results on Friday. And then something changes with the algorithm and Friday drops off a cliff. And then you've got to start posting on Sundays or Saturdays. So it's a lot to keep up with if you're not doing it day in, day out. So I think that the best advice there is just post when you can and you'll be able to measure the results. And if you see a pattern, then follow it.
Yeah. If you post good content, it'll get seen.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So if you post average content at a viral posting time, it's not going to get much engagement.
Yeah, I was surprised that. Go on.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say that sometimes we find that the amateur content actually outperforms the professional content. And I think that's because people like to see a bit of the realism as well as, so they love the beautiful architectural photography, but then they also really love just an iPhone photo.
Unfortunately, I found that out the hard way. I spent 3 hours making a reel one day and it's one of the greatest reels of all time. But then I did another post the following day. It took me literally 1 minute to make, where I was just talking about something on site. And the good one I made got 21,000 views, and the average one's over 500,000. I put no effort into it.
Do you know, we've got a reel that's one of the worst reels that we've made, that my brother was in town. My brother lives in America, and we wanted him to be in a reel, and we made one just using a little trend, and it's kind of cute and funny, but the lighting's not great, and it's only about 15 seconds long, and that reel got a million views.
Yeah.
And we've made some that have taken us a lot longer, a lot more polished, a lot more valuable content, we think, and it hasn't reached anywhere near that much.
Yep. Yeah. That's also why you can't be too can't put all your thoughts and hopes into how well something's going to go, because you never know how well it'll be, how successful.
No, and I think you're a great example of, you're just posting because you love it and you'll get great results for that reason, as opposed to not posting at all because you're worried about what you're putting out there.
Yeah, it's like the paralysis by analysis. If you start worrying about something too much, you'll never do anything about it.
Correct. Yeah.
So do you have plans to grow the business bigger than what it is now?
It's funny you say that, because I'm not. So at this stage, I've got a great team and it's hard. So obviously Sarah was my first employee. She's gone on maternity leave. It's very hard to replace staff members who have learned so much about your clients and know so much about the business. And I've decided just to keep the team where it is for now. And we're only very occasionally taking on new clients at the moment, and being really particular about who we take on so that we can stay small, because I feel like quality over quantity is the right thing for us right now. In an ideal world, I would be adding another 2 account managers to our team. So that's still a small team. But with 2 more on the team, I could still have contact with all the clients and still be proofreading all the posts and making it more of a boutique experience. And that's what I've always envisaged for Ambition. So I certainly don't have plans to have 50 account managers and thousands of clients and sort of more automated systems, because I don't think that works in this industry. And it might work in other industries, but I think in the landscaping space, everything's so personalised. I'd have to completely change my clientele to be able to grow it that big.
Yeah, and then you're not doing it because you love it. You're just doing it to make money. And
Exactly.
you can do other things and make more money.
Spot on. Yeah, that's right. So I'm taking the more boutique agency approach because I think that's going to make me happier, and it's a nicer team environment, I think, because we have a lot of camaraderie in here.
Mm. So do you do anything to help that? Like, do you do anything outside of work to build the staff, or is you just all get along really well without having to?
Yeah, I think I've just been really lucky with, finding the right. I look for personality because it's really important that the account managers are able to build a rapport with our clients and basically become a trusted advisor to them and someone that they trust to represent their business in the right way. And so you have to be a people person. And I think I've just really carefully handpicked my team. And that's why I'm sort of conscious of keeping it small, because I really want the right sort of people in the agency, as opposed to just account managers who can come in and follow systems and deliver in that way. Yeah, so I think I've just been, I say lucky, but I've also been very careful. But another aspect of it that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that it's hard being the boss, because you can employ great people and you can be friendly with them, but you can't really be, even in a small team, it's not like you're friends when you're the boss versus your staff. And I struggle with that because I love my team and I think they're amazing people, but you've always got to keep that distance between the boss and the rest of the team. I don't know how you feel about that, but I've definitely noticed that over the past few years of growing the business.
Yeah, I've come across plenty of landscape companies who do things differently. Like there's one I've known for a long time who won't do anything with his employees because he doesn't want to make them feel like they're friends. He wants them to make them feel like they're employees. But yeah, I would do, like, I don't do a lot with my guys, but that's just me. I don't do a lot with anyone really. So, but yeah, others will have beers after work every night. So it really depends on the individual. So like if you've got, and it depends on your employees as well, because if you've got people who like your team seem like they would be doing the right thing anyway, so you can get along well with them and be friendly, whereas other people, if they're rubbish employees, they need to be pulled into line every now and then you've got to kind of create that hard line.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, because you can't, it's very hard once you've crossed that friendship boundary to then pull someone into line.
Yeah, and it depends on, like, if they've been with you a long time, then you'd be able to say it. So
yeah,
and depending on how employees take criticism, and so it's really, like you said, it makes a big difference on who you employ about how successful they're going to be. So it's not just about, like, you might find someone who's a good landscaper, but they're not a good person. So just because you're a landscaping company, you don't want to put them on because they're not a good person. So they'll be swearing at your client and all that sort of thing. So it matters about the type of person they are almost more than their landscaping skills, and the same with your business.
That's exactly the same. So when they've come on board, we've had one recently who had social media management experience who's come on board, but the other girls have come on board with wonderful writing skills, but they've learnt their skills on the job. But what they had most importantly was that emotional intelligence, which is almost impossible to teach if they don't have it already, and people skills so that they get along well with our clients.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, how many posts do you do in a week, like company-wide?
Oh, huge numbers. So I think at one stage I was generating reports for the whole company and we were getting like 1.5 million impressions per month with all the different posts that we do. So yeah, I hate to think how many it is. And we're obviously creating a lot of reels and stories because they're all considered posts now, reels and stories. And it's like every touch point that you have that you publish, because we manage all up 70 social media profiles. So that's not 70 clients, but that's 70 social media profiles across all of our clients. And so, yeah, I stopped doing it, but for a while I was fascinated by those monthly reports, just seeing how much content we were publishing every week.
So how many landscapers are in that 70?
Actually, not so many now, because I think particularly in the Adelaide market, it's a little bit different in Melbourne and Sydney, but in Adelaide, we work with two of the top design and construction teams over here. And that's a pretty small market. And if we're working with too many more, then it would start to be a case of us basically presenting every landscaping company in the top end online. And so I started to branch out into Melbourne and Sydney, and we actually just took on our first international landscaping client in New Zealand. Cool. So I think they're all up, there would be 5 within our whole client mix. So, but what has happened there is that we've branched out into every other area of construction. So we have plumbers, electricians, architects, builders, landscape suppliers. So yeah, when you say landscaping companies, but I guess we've got quite a few landscape supply companies. And we get great joy sometimes when we'll share a post and there might be 5 ambition clients involved in one project in different capacities. So with all of our clients put together, we could design and build a whole house and then design and build a whole landscape and pool and supply it with every aspect of it. So
nice.
Yeah.
And then you got content for years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, Ineke, I've got one more question for you. Who do you think would be a good guest to have on this podcast?
So just what I was mentioning before, I reckon it would be cool to have an international landscaper come online, because you've chatted to a lot of people in the industry, and I was thinking that it would be great to have like a landscaper from New Zealand, because as we started working with clients over there, we've noticed that there's sort of similarities between the industries, but lots of differences as well. So I think that could be a really interesting chat.
I have asked 3 companies in New Zealand and none of them get back to me. So have you got, so is it the company you look after, would they be a good one?
Potentially, yeah. So we've only just started working with them, so I'm not going to mention who they are just yet, because we're just about to delete their account and start again, because it's been mismanaged up until this point. But you will start to see their posts coming through on our account, so you can watch out for that. But I know that through that network, we'll be able to get a guest on the podcast who will be, because just looking at their content makes me want to move to New Zealand. It's just such a beautiful place.
Yeah, I love it over there. I went there, 20 years ago now. But yeah, it's like Tasmania, but better.
Yep, and I love Tasmania. So I've not been to New Zealand. I'm very keen to go.
Yeah. All right. Can't thank you enough for coming on. I know that no doubt people would have got a lot of value out of this. So thank you very much for sharing it. I really appreciate your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've been watching all of your interviews and absolutely loving the content that you're sharing. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.